Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary. Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and enjoy Stacy's story of waking up for love to be in a relationship with a deep, real Keith Hudson. If you hadn't heard it, go, you'll want to check it out. Today we are speaking to a man who was born in India and at a really young age moved to America, but he still has all that culture and tradition from India that he had an arranged marriage. Thank you so much, Vaidya, for being here. You want to start by telling us a bit of your background and where you come from?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. So, I'm usually always talking about the business entrepreneur story, and your podcast is so unique. So thank you so much for the opportunity. So my background is I'm actually from India. I was born and raised in India. A very unique story because, it's that true immigrant trying to make something out of themselves type of story because my parents, they came to the US first, left me in India at a very, very young age, around 6 to 9 months. And I was raised by my grandparents. And I actually met my parents for the first time at the age of 5. And due to immigration and all the stories, I mean, of course, they would have loved to bring me earlier, but immigration is a whole different story. And as you know, US immigration is even more crazier. So that's kind of where I came from, and of course I've been living in the U.S. now since the age of 5, and it's been such an amazing experience. But naturally, as an immigrant coming into a place where my 15 lineages behind me were from India, so I'm kind of against somebody who has 8 lineages in the U.S. So I have to work that extra mile, right?
Yeah. After that, you were raised by your parents?
Afterwards, of course, very, very culture traditional. My grandparents lived with us, I mean, all the way until they passed. So I was raised pretty much between my grandparents and my parents in a multi-generational household.
Was that like overwhelming or did you enjoy that?
So coming from that background of having, a large kind of community around me and the relationships and having a multi kind of family type of approach, growth, I didn't see it as challenging, but I could now see, now that I have my own child, I could see how much of a challenge it may be when I'm trying to instill certain values into my child, and then maybe my parents want to instill certain level of values, and they might intertwine or they might not work at all or whatever else. So I could see where it comes from, but at the same time, I'm just fortunate enough to see, the old generations teach me something, and then of course my parents teaching me stuff.
Yeah. But did you like that or was it you're just trying to say it was okay?
I will say I loved it, and I'll tell you why. There's things that right now, if my grandparents were alive and they were able to instill into my child, it would be so valuable because their experience and their life story is teaching this generation. And somebody who grew up in the 50s or 40s, life story is totally different now. So you're getting that like, hey, look, you know what? Here's an iPhone. But back then, forget about an iPhone. They didn't even think about going to the moon. Yeah, so it's like culture clashing, but at the same time there's definitely opportunities that come out of it, and I'm an old soul because of the way that my grandparents raised me. So there's definitely 100% valuable having multi-generational living, and I've met so many people in my life that have been raised by other family members that are much older, and it has been so valuable to them. So I'm 100% on board.
Awesome. Okay. Now, at what age did you get married?
I got married 24. Actually, I was 23 turning 24. It was right around that time. Yeah, I got
Now,
married
is that
extremely young.
considered old for your background? Young? How does it work?
Um, if you ask somebody of the Gen Y, then in the Indian culture, then that's actually on point around the right time. But now you ask a millennial, a late age millennial or a Gen Z, and they're gonna be like, "You're crazy." Because most people now, like, my own sibling, one of them got married last year and she was 27. So, it's just different, right? But I was also an arranged marriage. So slightly different story than the normal, hey, I want to live with this person for a while, get to know them, or story like that. It's totally different.
So how did that work?
The way the kind of the thought process behind it was is that my grandfather, and of course my parents and my grandparents totally actually, and my parents approached it and they said, look, we want to make sure that whoever you're going to get married to, or whenever that point in time comes, we want you to feel comfortable with them, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the multiple lineages afterwards stay within the caste, the culture, this, that, all these things matter. And right now, if you were to talk to somebody that of Indian descent, they're going to say, "Oh, that doesn't matter to me," which is true. Nowadays, it is not something that matters. But when I got married, at that moment in time, it still did matter, right? So when they said it, I said, all right, well, look, I don't want to, I wanted that flexibility that I don't want to just marry anyone because like my parents, they were just kind of given a photo and that was it. Like it wasn't that.
They
It
didn't
was
meet
the
each other
next,
before.
right. But it was the next stage where I actually did get a chance to talk to, my now wife, and I got a chance to actually meet her face to face when the time came and things like that. But it wasn't like said, oh, it's just hey, I could do this. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just move on. It wasn't that, it wasn't like, oh, I'm given the opportunity to change. It's like, no, this is the person. You can go around whatever angle you want to see it, but this is the person. So try to make sense of it.
So what was it like when you met her the first time? You're like, okay, I know I'm marrying this person. What should I do?
You know what happens is when you take out the whole, well, I'm marrying this person, so then where does love come into it? You take out the love actually, because love happens, right? But you got to figure out, is that person right for you in the sense of, okay, are they doing some crazy thing? Do they have any type of, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever story that they have, right? You got to know those things. And that's what it actually becomes more of a, hey, you finished school, right? Well, how far in school did you finish? Or how far in college did you finish? Okay, what are your future plans? What do you want to do? Do you have any debt? Because if you have debt, then how are we going to figure that out, right? Like the real, what I would call the business stuff really comes into play, right? Things that like actually are going to matter in life. Yeah, like I said, the love thing matters, but the love will come. But
So
it's the other thing.
when you spoke about the stuff that mattered, like let's say, what are your plans for the future?
Yeah.
What happened if she had stuff that you totally disagreed on?
So to my good fortune, it wasn't. But things pivot over the years and we learn from each other. So things have changed from the point of when I originally met her, right? When I met her, she says, oh, I want to go into the medical field and I want to focus on this. And now I ask her, she's not like, she's done that things in this country and that's not her priority anymore. But at that moment in time, it was more of, okay, well, this person, this is the stuff that she's good at. This is the stuff that I'm good at. Can we make this manage? And one thing that my grandfather actually told me, and something for the audience, if anyone ever is looking to really find the right spouse, right? May it be a male, female, or whatever story is, take your weaknesses and go find that person that has your weaknesses and
That has them as a
complement those
strength.
weaknesses.
Yeah.
And they have their strengths are your weaknesses.
Yeah.
So my weakness is I'm a workaholic guy who doesn't know how to cook, that really knows how to talk. But when it comes down to like childcare, I love it. I can handle it, but that's not like priority in my mind. My wife is that I am not. Cooks extremely well, very good managing the household, knows how to talk to certain family with certain things. And, so find what complements you as an individual. And that was something my grandfather told me. Because the way the story was is when I was like in my college years, finishing up actually starting my MBA, he approached me for the first time then. I think I was 20 at that year, 21. And he goes, so you ever thought about marriage? You thinking about the future? I said, oh, I'll think about it. A couple months later, he just kept at it, right? And finally I asked him, like, why you keep bugging me on this marriage thing? He's like, oh, because time flies. I'm getting older. That's what actually the thing he said. He says, I'm getting older. I want to see potential grandchildren at some point, right? And that for him would be a great grandchild at that. Right? He wants to see.
Right. He was your
great
grandfather, so that would be a great grandchild. Yeah.
So yeah, he and the thing with my family is I'm the only boy. My dad was the only boy, so
It's
and
son
then
after
the rest
son.
were all,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with women, no girl issues, nothing. I am but to all the people listening, I have multiple siblings that are all female, and I love them to death. And you know what? And all the other stuff. So I don't want to put any kind of like
No,
boy
no, it's not
emphasis.
putting down. It just, there's a difference. I know, like
Yeah,
my grandmother, she is the only daughter in her family.
yeah,
She only had one girl, and that girl only has one girl. So she's like a bit obsessing over that. It's like literally four
yeah,
generations, only girls. So same thing. It doesn't make a difference, but
yeah.
there's a certain,
No, this,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But that's the old mindset, right? They're like, oh, blah blah blah. So anyway, so after a while, I just asked him like, why do you keep bugging me, man? Like, what's the story? And I'm by that point, look, I'm multiple years here in this country. I'm almost Americanized mentally, but very cultured because I lived in a multi-generational household, very religious and things of that nature. So, when he approached me, I finally got to a point where I'm like, all right, look, you want me to get married? What's the next steps? Like, what's the next steps? Like clearly you want to take this to the next level. What do I have to do?
hold
And
on.
that's when
Before
that,
you tell,
yeah,
I want to interrupt you because it's
yeah,
like the
go for
second
it.
time that it's coming up again. He first said before that now he's saying he wants to get married. Obviously, it's like taking it a bit literal, and there's a much bigger
Yeah,
part here, but I feel like there's like an underlining something here. Here, he wants you to get married. He mentioned he wants to see his grandchildren, great grandchildren. He's getting old. Obviously, that's not the only reason why he wants you to get married, but it's still on his mind, right? And he told you earlier, you mentioned that he said he wants you to get married to someone because he wants to make sure he keeps the tradition in,
yeah.
right? Now, it sounds like there's a bit of like, what if you, for some reason, didn't want to keep the tradition and go to something else? It's almost like this is what he wants, and this is what you're going to have to do.
And again, that is something that's that culture of the past where, you will just follow this track. And if you sway off this track, it will create big problems. So just follow this track. And we're making it so easy that we're paving the road for you. So it's like, ST, if I tell you that, hey, ST, I'm going to give you a car and I'm going to pave the road. And all you do is just follow the road in the car I give you. You don't have to think too much. And so that's kind of the thought process that, hey, we're going to help you with this whole process. We're going to kind of get you to that end goal of where, of that marriage point.
Right, because it's the goal
And
that
and
they
there's no
want. They're going to,
confusion.
and I'm not to put it down, not at all. I'm
No,
just
no,
like
no, no, no.
analyzing the situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
That your grandfather he paved this road for you, or he's trying to, and he put a goal in the end. Now that goal is something that he wants. What if you wanted a goal that was more north
So,
or something
well,
else?
and that's the thing that I was mentioning afterwards is, of course, there's a conversation then, right? Like of course, look, if you're given an open book test, right, where the book is the book, but now you as an individual have to figure out, all right, what page is this thing on? So I'm asking him that question, like, okay, you want me to get married, you want to see grandchildren somewhere in the future, whatever the story is, you
Right,
want to
right.
see this thing. Well, how can we now it's a negotiation period. Now it's me saying, all right, Grandpa, what is it that you're looking for? Oh, well, we've looked at these type of kind of at the time girls for you, right? And these are the households they're in, right? Now, it's not just one, it's multiple different ones that you're looking at. Now, which one do you like better? Which one don't you like? Which one do you want to talk about? And of course, there's a process. I blindly say that, oh yeah, my wife, she was the first pick and that was it. But the truth be told, there were multiple people that I looked at, but my wife was actually the first. They call it biodata, right? That's the biography that I looked at with all the details of her. And then that then was, I'm pretty sure that was intentional to put her first, because then of course I match everyone else up against that, right? But I got very kind of accustomed to seeing, okay, well, I'm looking for this type of person. And we spoke about that. All right, like my grandfather, the cool thing is that I was fortunate enough where they actually asked me, like, all right, what are you looking for? Well, I told them I'm good at working hard. I'm good at XYZ, but I'm not good at cooking. I'm not good at the whole kind of this thing or that thing. And then they kind of found people that complemented my weaknesses.
So they
Or
work
yeah,
together. They took what they
yeah,
want and what you want, so that way you get the
yeah,
best out of both of them. Awesome.
exactly.
Okay.
And then through that process, now that's my story, but the prior generation traditional story was, here's the photo. This is who you're gonna marry, or hey, there's not even a photo. This is who you were gonna marry. And the other big thing in this whole kind of every single biodata I looked at, there's a purpose. That person, I wasn't just marrying the person. I was marrying their family. Okay, like I was getting involved in that family. So like my wife, her father, my father-in-law, has known my grandfather for over 20 years, right? So there was already a relationship, right? So same with the other, kind of people I was looking at, the other ladies I was looking at. There was already something there that, oh, this is a person that knows this person, or this person knows one of my aunts who knows this person, blah, 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 and things like that. So what happens is you're not kind of one, if you think about it, right? No one wants to get their child married off if they're the ones that are making the arrangement into something that's a total mess.
For
That's
sure.
not the intention for
Even
anyone.
if they're not making the arrangement, they want their
Yeah,
child to marry
yeah.
someone who they love
So
and is going to be good for them in life.
exactly. So the thing is, like, what better than somebody who's giving a warm referral that, oh, I know this family. The father works in a government job. The mother works for this. The brother works here. And the girl has done a master's degree in XYZ. Like that then becomes a warm referral, right? Instead of you having to learn, or me having to learn about that whole story,
Yeah.
right? The first time meeting, the in-laws and all that stuff.
You
Now
like
it's
have that
already
whole
done.
background. Yeah.
Now it's already done.
It's warm, it's awesome, you comment, you're not completely a stranger. But what happens if it doesn't work out? Or maybe after you got married, for some reason, feel like you need to get divorced. And then the families are much closer. It's not just between the two people, there's a whole
100%.
family relationship.
I mean, in my own family, we have a few family members that have been divorced that were arranged marriage, and it is a total mess up. And I don't even want to say, there's a couple of bad words tied to it, but it's just a total mess, you know? And what happens is, like, I'll give you an example. Me and my wife, we're from the same state. More importantly, we're from the same caste and the same kind of almost village. If you want to kind of go very granular. Now, no one marks the villages anymore, but the truth is that there's some wording tied to it that if you are within the culture, within the caste, right? Every religion has them, and every culture has them.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm marrying a girl from Queens. Oh, where in Queens? Oh, from this piece right here, right? From Jackson Heights, Queens. That's it. That's where the girl's from, and I'm from there. And it's just, everyone has it. So when you have that type of a breakup, it now creates a major rift, because now not just the two families, but the friends of those families
Wow.
now, it's like, all right, which side do you support? And I mean, I've seen some crazy stories from people, and I've seen some insanely crazy stories. And there's just no easy way around it, to be honest. It's real. I hate saying it. You have to pick sides for multiple generations now to come, because it's not like one or two generations. This is going on for a long time, right?
Because the family are so intertwined and they're so
Yeah,
part of the culture.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's good and bad
Now,
to
now
each
the
of
other
them.
side is, I actually have somebody that I know that got that breakup, and the families are still very close, because the thing is that it was a mutual decided breakup, that
Okay.
it wasn't going to ever work out. But what happens is, at that point, the family, they actually break away from the child, and not necessarily disown him or anything, but just say, hey, look, you know what? You made your decision, but we're making our decision this way, right? Or we're planning to still keep our relationships like this. You can do what you want, but this is what we're looking to do, you know?
When you say they break away from the child, you mean they now like view them differently and don't have the same relationship with them?
No, 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 no. When I say breakaway, I mean like the child and whoever, let's just say the husband, wife, or whatever the
Right.
story may be, they break up, right? Now, let's say the guy, his
Yeah.
family, well, they still are very close friends with the girl's family.
Right.
They'll just tell the boy or whatever, the girl, whoever it is, that, hey, look, you did what you did, but we're not breaking this up.
It shows that it's
Right.
not
But
as much
what
personal.
happens is then holiday events, cultural events, things that you're still seeing their faces, and it
Oh,
can be
for
very
sure.
challenging for the individual. But again, I see, because I'm Indian, and in the culture that I'm part of, and people I know, I've seen every little story of these things that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, sorry. Okay, so now back to your story.
Yeah.
So
So
you went
so
to
so
back to your
basically,
grandfather and he told him now what, and he showed you, he gave you these
yeah,
options.
yeah, it gives the options, and ultimately through the vetting process of, okay, well, this person, oh, her dad owns 7 dealerships, very cool, but she doesn't seem like she wants to take that second level of education, and not for me, right? This, and we're vetting it all together, right? But ultimately, through the vetting process, the thought process is still always, oh, how can I mirror that one person? Because it was always there. It was always there. I look back now, and I could tell you that if I had just stopped wasting time looking at all the other people, it was always there, and I tell it to my wife today. She thinks I'm crazy, but I'm like, no, 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 you were always the first. You don't get it. Like, it was always there, and so through the whole vetting process, it just kind of made me realize that this is the person I really want to get married to. And then the next step is communication. You got to start talking to the person, right? Like you can't, again, it's not old school generation anymore where it's like, okay, this is a photo and you're getting married. Now let's have a conversation. So, my wife was in India, I was in the US at the time of kind of first initialization. And we had a couple months, it was like 2 or 3 months before we actually met face to face. And
And
the
then you
funny
met
thing
on
is,
phone. You spoke on the phone, or you had no contact
yeah, I
with each
spoke
other?
on the phone, video kind of chat, but again, video was still fairly newer, right? But we still communicated, but with the intention that there was no kind of changing. There was
Right.
no secondary thought because the thing is, once I met her, like in person, like within a couple of days, we got married.
Wow. What's called a couple of days?
I think I met her maybe 4 times and maybe for like a half hour to an hour
Oh wow.
each. And then we got, yeah, I mean,
Got married.
due to some immigration related things we needed to get married, so we just got married.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
And now
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
married to almost a stranger, but not really because you spoke about all the serious stuff. What was that like in the beginning? How was your relationship? Was there love yet? Like you said, the love comes after. How was it for you?
So from my point of view, and by the way, this is for the audience. This is all my point of view stuff. Everyone has their own point of view. So if you're listening to this in the future and you're kind of bashing on me, please just know it's all my point of view, and ST has her own points of view on this matter as well.
And that's exactly what this podcast is, getting points of view of everyone and people that contradict each other all the time. So this is
Yeah, yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Say whatever you want to say.
No, 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 that's fine. And so, going back to your point, well, where the future was and the whole love story and the next steps were, well, again, I'm getting married to somebody in a different country, right? Who I didn't know too well. So, like, what's the right way of explaining it? It's like love didn't even hit me first. I needed to figure out 10 other things before love got there, right? Because I needed to figure out, oh, how am I going to bring my wife to this country? That's the first and the biggest actual challenge, right? So
You got
immigration.
married. So your wedding was in India.
Yeah, my wedding was in
Okay.
India. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm a U.S. citizen, and she at the time was not, of course. And so bringing her here. So yeah, we could do all the conversations about, oh, you're so great, and I'm so great, and this and that. But the truth be told, it was like top of mind was how do I bring her here, right? So you asked me about love. It's like, well, when that flight or fight reaction happens and you have to like react right away. That's how the thought is. It's like, well, I need to do these things. And then the moment all of this settles, that's when I'm like, oh wow, you're really beautiful. But well, yes, because of our human nature, you have to say it and you have to like do the whole process. But the truth is that I realized the person like after she got here. Because through that whole time, we're only talking on the phone, maybe a couple of video chats, doing all these things, but there's no real way to establish, oh, well, you're this or I'm that, or oh, like, what's your favorite color and there was no actual chance to really go deep into that because there's other things that are more important. Putting my income tax returns together because I had to submit it to the immigration office, putting her education documents together to get it to the translation office here in the U.S. so I can get her into some type of education program in the U.S. Those things are things that are going on in my mind.
Especially for a workaholic.
Yeah, well, a workaholic, but also it's just like there's so many other things that
Yes,
come in.
yeah, for
So
sure.
I'd say probably, I talk about this whole love thing. Once she got here, then it was like, all right, the person's here. Like she
To
has
breathe.
a status in the US. Now we'll figure out stuff that can go on. Now her English is not that strong, no problem. We'll figure it out now. No problem, right? If she's not good at this, no problem. We'll figure it out. But the thing is, then it becomes working together because then she came into this household away 7,000 to 8,000 miles away from her family. Now I have to make sure that she actually feels like home because now she's seeing really the closeness of a 3 generation household for the first time. And the unfortunate factor is that so I got married a court marriage the first time. Second time, I actually went back to India a year later. That was the year that her immigration was going to get approved. So we went back and did like the whole Indian wedding, the big, big stuff. And unfortunately, 5 days into the wedding, after my wedding was done, my grandfather passed away.
Oh, wow.
So, and a very, very interesting story. I was actually supposed to get married in June, and my grandfather came to us. This was after the wedding hall was figured
Booked.
out.
Yeah.
Everything was pretty much, and this was January, end of January. Everything was already locked in, right? My grandfather came to us and said, listen, I want you guys to get married in March. Like, like get married, like we already did the court marriage. I'm talking like the whole big, big wedding,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
We want you to do the wedding thing in March. And we're like, like my father-in-law, my wife at the time, because she was already married, she's like, "Are you crazy? Like we just already booked everything. Like the venue was booked, the food was booked, like everything was booked. Because you got to pre-organize things, right? And it's marriage season and all the other things." And he's like, "No, no, no, we need it." And so like they worked pretty diligently and got the whole wedding moved to March. And 5 days after my wedding, he passed away.
So he almost like was
So
able to see in the future.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he
Did
actually
he ever
passed away
tell
on the
you why he wanted it in March?
no, and he passed away on the flight actually back to the U.S. So he actually died on a plane.
On a plane?
Uh,
Well, how'd that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
happen?
He had a prior brain tumor that
Okay.
was kind of like dormant, that more or less woke up, and it just totally messed him up. And so he passed away over the Atlantic Ocean coming back here to the U.S.
And they like had to make emergency landing and things.
Well, no, no, well, they landed the plane at the airport, but yeah, I mean, I was not there. I was coming a couple of days after, but based on what my parents said, they've never seen. I mean, NSA, FBI, every single department agency, Homeland Security, everyone was there because somebody passed away on a plane. Like that doesn't ever happen regularly.
No, usually they
So
do any of their precautions that might be something is not allowed
yeah,
on the plane. So
yeah, and he was actually completely fine, but he just, I guess something happened and it just,
there were other
but
plans that were made for him.
he was 84 years old. He rocked a good life, and he raised me, so he's like my kind of like my dad, and so it meant a lot.
Yeah, how was that for you? You're like going from such a high, you're having your wedding, your whole party. You are so grateful that he
Extremely
was
emotional.
there. And then,
Yeah, extremely emotional because so he passed away. 2 days later, I actually landed in the U.S. and then they had the funeral, and it was just extremely emotional. Unfortunately, even my wife wasn't even able to come, so that extra level of support structure. Now I can say I'm married, like I did two marriages, right? I did the court one and the big one, and I still don't have the person here. So this is what I mean. Like, when somebody's listening to this and they're like, "Well, what do you mean love, Sid? You didn't fall in love?" And I'm like, how? How? There's so many other things going on. How? To my good fortune, my grandmother stayed long enough to see my child. So she actually passed away just a few years back. So she actually saw her great grandchild, which is a very
wow.
unique story.
So
But
how is it for your wife to have all these challenges, right? So there was the whole part, some things were very specific, you together, of you moving to the US and making her immigration. But let's say here, her grandfather passed away. Now she doesn't know him as well as you, right? And she wants to go and support you and be there for you, but you're still quite newly married. How did she deal with all of it?
extremely emotional. So actually, what happens is my grandparents would stay in India for months at a time during the hot, like cold season here. They would go live over there, and so she actually did stay with them for almost a month and a half during this whole kind of window of
Okay.
us kind of the first, the court marriage to the main marriage. She
Mm-hmm.
stayed with them for a couple of months, so she actually got to know the person pretty well. And he actually went to India like almost a month prior to the wedding as well. So she stayed like, she was there at that time as well. But, it just in a short window, and it depends on the person, right? So you as SG, like you may not be as emotionally tied to every individual out there in the world. But my wife, you spend 10 minutes with her and you're going to think that she's part of your family. That's just the nature of the person. She's an extremely homely individual, right? So, and don't get
I'm
me
sure
wrong,
like
I am
everyone
very,
wants to be her friend and just be with
yeah,
her.
but and that's so I am like that, but I have a little bit of more reservation. I'm more Americanized, as I kind of call it, right? But so she's just one of those. So it's like it's devastating, and not just to her, but her parents because of
Her
the
family.
relationship they had,
Yeah.
the society. My grandfather pretty much went from being a farmer's son with six brothers and a sister to being the breadwinner of the entire household.
Oh,
He
wow.
he got over 20 people married in the household. Okay, I'm telling you, like
Indian style
financially,
weddings. Yeah.
financially, and so he meant a lot, not only for me, my wife, but for thousands of people. His loss was like a earthquake in the whole family. But again, age is a part of it, and plus the story I told you with the brain tumor. So,
Yeah, just like
you
you said
know,
in
uh,
the beginning, when you have the joys of everyone together and the sorrows of everyone together, so you have more people to mourn with you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, look, as my wife kind of came to this country, started getting acclimated, it's that natural progression of anyone that comes to this country, right? The only good thing that actually, the biggest good thing, not the only good thing, the biggest thing was that I was there because if she had that type of a stepping stone, I actually helped push her up, right? So if she wanted to know how to do something, well, I kind of showed her the way. But at the same time, she's been my like largest supporter and my biggest stepping stone because every type of crazy thing that I want to do, she's like, don't worry about it. You do it. I'll handle this. We're right now podcasting. I have my own network with Sid Brand, right? I have all of this stuff that I do on social media as well as do all these things. But I also have a family life, a child, a household to handle, and that's what she does. So I give her a lot of respects because the thing is that, but that's what she wants to do too. Because that was one of the things I actually asked her early on. I was like,
Right. You
is
said
this
it's
what
one of
you
your
want to do?
requirements. Exactly.
Yeah, is this what you want to do? Because if it's not, tell me. Because if it's not, then tell me, right? And over the years, we've learned from each other. And still to date, I still don't think I know her colors and I know what type of polka dot or stripe. But when she's upset, I could smell it 2 miles away, right? When she's in a bad mood, I just know what to do, right? And so to me, the colors and the dots and all that stuff, it doesn't matter because I can actually have an emotional reading of it
Okay,
and
so
vice versa.
was there like certain conversations or certain things that happened that got you that really deep understanding of how to relate to her and how to be there with her?
I think it was just stepping stones, to be openly and honest with you. I questioned her, she questioned me. And I'm not saying it's just like a back and forth, like an interview. This was like over the years of just
Of
learning
course.
and understanding and like, oh, hey, why are you this way? Well, my mom taught me this way. Oh, I'll give you an example. She makes certain type of foods. And I'm like, well, why do you always make this all the time? And I asked her actually a couple of weeks back, like on a specific food item. It was a vegetable dish she made. And I'm like, why do you always make this? Just curious. Why do you make this all the time? She goes, because this is something that my grandmother used to make. And it reminds her of her grandmother. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Something new that I learned. After my years of marriage, I'm still learning, and she knows that, there's certain things that I do. And, the other day, my grandmother used to make this specific dish. And I told her, I said, can you make this? She goes, oh my God, like it's going to take forever. But I actually came home from my meeting and she actually made it.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
just like such a gentle feeling, that it's like we care and we understand and we're going to have our ups and downs and we're going to yell at each other. And that's just a normal life. I don't think I've ever met any type of a marital situation where, or somebody who's together in general that hasn't had their little level of argument. The thing is that emotional relationship has to be there to make anything work. And two, say it or not, I call it a contract. I know that that's it. There's no
There's no
there's no
option of divorce.
there's no,
Exactly.
there's no, there's no paper written. There's nothing on the bottom line that says, oh, I can get out of this. It's like my child. There's no place that I'm going to write that says, oh, I can get out of this, right? So that's it. And when I've committed to this, I'm fully committed and vice versa. I can see it,
That's
So,
awesome.
by the way,
Oh,
I've never spoken on this topic. This is amazing. You have a very unique questioning method, by the way.
thank you, Sid. Now, how do you deal with challenges specifically in a way that people can learn from the way that you deal with challenges and deal with challenges in a better way?
Something that actually me and my wife were facing a couple months ago, and I don't want to be specific on that thing, but I will tell you, it wasn't actually between us, but that thing that happened created a little bit of tension between us in the thought process.
Okay.
Right? Because she went in this direction, I went in this direction. And I'm one of those, like I watch so much self-improvement stuff, and so does she in her own fashion, that we try to fix things before that explosion happens. So the biggest and the most important way to solve any problem is you need to communicate with each other the problem and what that solution on each person's thought process is. So if you, Esty, say that this is your solution to this problem, well, that's your opinion and your thought process. But you need the opposite side to also give their opinion and their thought process. And then the negotiations start. And I tell you, that is probably my number one advice in not just marriage, in any relationship, friendship, business contacts, in whatever I'm doing, is you can't just be stubborn about your opinion and your thought process. You have to be respectful on the other person on the other side. And I actually teach that to a lot of I speak with a lot of young professionals and college graduates and people, and they're always telling me, oh, but my parents told me this or this or that. I'm like, yeah, but did you actually understand them? Do you understand them?
Not
And
just
most
hear
of the
it, but
time they're
actually
like,
listen to it. Yeah.
yeah. And they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, well, I thought of this and I want to go to California and I want to do Hollywood. And I'm like, yeah, but have you actually understood it? And I swear to you, on Monday, I'm talking to this person, I'm driving, and this person's like, well, my mother and my brother want me to go up this route. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I want to do this route. And I'm like, all right, well, you've been doing it for 2 years. You're unsuccessful. Maybe it's worth just listening to them, because all he's been doing is just listening to himself. And that's been hurting him, right? So again, going back to this marriage topic, that actually is the number one thing I could, tell you on this.
And I think that goes back to when you were speaking about when you were doing, I guess, your research, like back of a letter description of your wife now, and you were discussing with your grandfather the same thing. He was listening to what you had to say, and you were listening to what he had to say. And that's why you got such an amazing person.
Yeah, yeah, knock on wood, every wood out there, whatever you want to call it. But no, look, I mean, even to date, if there's challenges, I talk it out with my wife and she talks out with me. And the one thing, again, that emotional experience, I figured out, if it's stuck in here and it can't come out, you got to force it out.
That is
Because
really hard. How do you do that?
the nicest way said, just keep asking them until they're able to pull it out.
Okay. Oh, so you're saying from a partner's point of view, if you see that your spouse has something stuck in them, ask them questions until it comes out.
So I've actually been meditating for the last 17 years. So me personally, I've, again, immigrant, come to this country, put in a situation. I was actually ESL, 2-year ESL student.
Oh, wow.
My English is, I thank the person that taught me, Miss Petty, actually. I won't forget her name ever, because she taught me how to speak
Well, you speak
English
perfectly now, so.
So thank you. But the meditation and mindfulness meditation, particularly, 17 years ago, people laughed at me when I did it, when I would talk about it, right? Because they're like, what are you talking about? It was me and Deepak Chopra, if anyone knows who that guy is. They were the only two people talking about it, about the whole cosmic space and all the other stuff, right? And now it's like, oh yeah, you don't meditate, you're not cool. Like, so the thing is, if you really want to, as an individual, if you want to kind of get that thing out of you, I'd say talk to yourself, right? Talk to yourself. And I'm not saying like a crazy loony way, talk to yourself. I'm saying ask yourself. Like, I've had hard decisions where, I'll give you an example, is the year I got married was the year I changed 3 jobs. Okay. And all of this in such a short window. And then the same time, my grandfather passed away. I changed my entire lifestyle from being a person that worked in New York City for 7 years to coming into New Jersey where I live. But how did I do it? People still question me now. How'd you do it? Because there's that little thing inside that's telling you, should I do it, not do it? Should I do it, not do it? And you're doing, what I'm telling you with the way I do it with my wife, right? Get this opinion, and negotiate it out. I did the same thing with myself internally. Right? That's it. That's how I've kind of led my life,
That is awesome. Guys, you'll want to find out more about Sid. Go to networkwithsid.com and network with him there. Thank you so much, Sid. This was awesome. I had so much fun.
No. Thank you so much. And it's been a unique experience. Like I said, Esty, I've been just podcasting for people on the business and entrepreneur side and finance and things like that. And so having the opportunity to talk about the whole marriage situation, you're doing a fantastic thing.
Thank you, Sid.
No problem.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.